Hello, good evening. Welcome back to Odd One Out. I'm Colin Spencer. This is my wife Ashlee, and we are kicking things off today after a rather unfortunate series of events over the weekend, Friday to be specific. A little bit of news has developed since then, but that's essentially going to be what we're talking about today. Last time we were talking a lot about, the proposed budget and other proposals like cuts to Medicaid. Actually, fun fact, cuts to Medicare as well, and other cuts. But now we have foreign affairs, international news, as President Zelensky decided to come visit and see about negotiations. So, Ashlee, why don't you get us started off real quick?
Yeah, so like he said, we did our last episode on the House budget bill. So if you haven't watched that, make sure you go watch it. I did want to point out real quick something that we forgot to mention in that episode, which is that this has only passed in the House. So while this is very serious, now's not the time to panic. It's the time to keep fighting. Now call your senators, because that's where it's going to go next. Colin called one of our senators last week. So yeah, make sure you do that.
And I got through, by the way, so don't think that you're always going to go to just some voicemail, but go
on. So yeah, we are going to... Mainly, we want to talk about the meeting that happened between our vice president and the president of Ukraine. But first, I thought we would kind of do a quick explanation just of what's going on in the war. I know for me, I have my issues that I'm passionate about and more informed about. War, foreign affairs is not one of them. I try to keep up, but it's just not, we all have our things that we're most informed about. So I'm going to have Colin explain some things to us. If you first just want to briefly tell us, how did this war between Ukraine and Russia start?
Like all things, it's a little bit complex, and like myself, not being the greatest communicator, I may go on a little bit or may say something that needs more clarity, so please feel free to cut me off, interject if you want to say, okay, no, can you clarify, can you say blah, blah, blah. So anyways, this war obviously kicked off, and I believe it was February 2022, if not it was January. Russia, including in the interview with Tucker Carlson and just other press briefings that Putin has been speaking at, Putin says that he believes that Russia's rightful borders are all of the old Soviet borders. He believes that Ukraine is rightfully Russia's. He believes the Baltics are rightfully Russia's. He may even think that Poland, hey, why not, while we're at it, we get Poland too. Regardless, he has literally said that on if you're on the right wing or if you're like me and just try to take in what you can. You've seen that Tucker Carlson interview where Putin gives a long-winded history. So anyways, that's how this started, is Putin staged several military drills, including when Trump was president, by the way. In 2018, that intel was ignored. Putin had amassed several, it was at least several tens of thousands, if not it was up to 100,000, and it was reported, I watched the report, that, we need to keep an eye on this. So it's been something that had been developing for a while, started in 2008 with the invasion of Georgia, 2014 with Crimea, that he's just been on this conquest. And Ukraine is a democratic nation. We have basically a soft alliance with them. In 1994, we signed the Budapest Memorandum. We're supposed to have their back. They gave up all their nuclear weapons. Russia signed that deal too, by the way, which we'll get on that, on the discussion with Zelensky and Trump and Putin, and J.D. Vance about negotiations with Russia falling through. Ukraine gave up the ultimate defense of all time, worth who knows how much it's worth, trillions of dollars, to have a nuclear weapon arsenal as your defense. They gave it up, hoping the U.S. and Russia would go through strong on their end of the agreement.
Now, when was this? What agreement are you talking about?
This one's the Budapest Memorandum, and it was signed in 1994.
Okay.
That was not too long after the Soviet Union had collapsed, and the Baltics and Ukraine had become their own state, their own sovereign nation, and Ukraine is sitting with this nuclear arsenal. Anyways, that's all that aside. Ukraine is a strong country, as we're seeing, but it was vulnerable to Russia ever since they gave up these nukes. That was the whole point of this agreement. Russia didn't like to hold up their own end of the bargains. Putin does whatever's best for Putin. So that's how the invasion started. Was Putin trying to take back what he thought was originally his. He said that they would fall in 3 days. U.S. intel itself was not so confident that Ukraine would last very long. But what do you know? Ukraine is led by a strong leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, who, when the whole world was looking at him and saying, when is he going to get a Jeep, an armored van, something to get out? What did he say? He said, I don't need a ride, I need ammunition. The fight is here. So that is what a strong leader looks like, and he has been fighting his country has been fighting valiantly for 3 years.
So what you're saying is the war started because Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yes, and this is agreed upon by the Republicans as well. At least it used to be. Apparently not anymore. You have Republican congressmen like Lindsey Graham, who just 2 weeks ago was on an interview with Zelensky and saying, "Man, we don't even have to fight. We just give you our weapons," and this is his words. Excuse me for the French. He says, "We just give you the weapons, and you kick some commie ass." He said that 2 weeks ago. You want to know what he said just over the weekend? Oh, that was a disgrace by Zelensky. He can't even see about supporting them anymore. So it's really funny how they flip-flop on the issues depending on what that one man at the top says. And no, that's not God, although they treat him like God, and that's Donald Trump. So.
Okay, so the war, that's how the war started. Russia invaded Ukraine.
That's right.
So briefly, where are we now? What was this meeting about with Zelensky and our president and vice president?
Well, in the words of Congressman Frost, the grifter-in-chief wanted to take $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals from Ukraine in exchange for an economic and infrastructure deal. Normally, this might be a good idea if there wasn't a war going on. And so Zelensky felt, and that's about 50% of Ukraine's rare earth. And so Zelensky said, "Hey man, what's this deal? Can we get some security assurances?" And then you hear all this talk, don't you want peace? All this talk from the right, don't you want peace? I mean, let's just take a ceasefire. I want bullets to stop flying, is what Trump said. And Zelensky's sitting there in the office and trying to explain, "Mr. President, we have done ceasefires. Putin has broke them 25 times. He counted how many times Putin has broke a ceasefire deal. Putin is an angry, murderous dictator. He's evil. And a little ceasefire deal is only going to give him time to reload." And so Zelensky's not interested in that. And he himself, like a humble leader he is, a humble, strong leader, said, "These are not my minerals to give away. This is not my country to give away. I'm going to be out of office after my term." He should be out of office right now had it not been for the war. They literally have in their constitution that you cannot change presidents during the war. That's another thing from the right, that Trump himself called Zelensky a dictator because he's not getting out of his position. It's literally in the constitution that they can't. You have Zelensky's opposition that ran against him in the campaigns saying, whenever they were asked if he's a dictator, saying, "What are you talking about? This is our leader. He's our president." So I know I'm not so good at being brief. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So why were they meeting?
They were meeting. They were meeting for that deal, and Zelensky.
A deal, like for the U.S. to continue helping Ukraine. What kind of deal?
No, not helping them militarily. At least not spelled out in the deal. Of course, you can. The U.S. was going to be able to extract rare earth minerals. It would. I don't know if that entailed U.S. workers going there or Ukrainian workers being the ones that get it and transport it out. You can easily make the argument, yes, that having the U.S. over there physically, or at least the interests over there, might also intertwine. Well, surely they're going to be sending military aid, or surely they're going to be helping defend. However, that was not spelled out, and Zelensky is not a buffoon, unlike what we're used to. And he wanted some assurances and some guarantees, and that's all he came to talk about. So that's what that deal was about. It was about minerals and infrastructure and economic plan, but nothing to do at all with the military. And I don't know why we thought that Ukraine would be interested in an economic deal in the middle of an all-out assault war, World War II level casualties. Mm-hmm. So that's what that deal was about.
Okay. And so you kind of started to touch on this. So basically they were meeting about this deal. Zelensky had more questions, wanting protection for his people, and then we saw what we saw.
Yes, and you know where the real blow up started is all three of them are answering questions. Trump loved to bring up his lie that he always does, by the way, of Europe does not pay nearly as much as the United States. It's all in the form of a loan, not like the United States. And for the third time, he's been checked the third time by a foreign president. First it was Macron, then it was Starmy, I forget how you say his name, of the UK, and now it was Zelensky saying, "Sir, that is not true. And he's like, yeah, no, it's true that Europe gave less. And Zelensky's like, no. And then Trump's like, no. And he's like, no. Okay. Another source of proof that Zelensky doesn't back down, especially not to a coward. But yes, that's how it kind of started. They're all just talking. They're all answering questions. And then JD decides to go, I'm going to campaign for 2028. I'm going to get myself out there. And by the way, I'm going to bend the knee while I do it and kiss the ring. And it's going to be really embarrassing. When he sat there talking about, for years we had the President Biden stand up there and talk with his chest, beat his chest. You mean when we were sending aid, and the reason why we thought the Ukraine went from 3 days to 3 years is because of what Biden did? But anyways, he's getting up there trying to do a little stage, do a little MAGA rant, and then you know how he ends it? And we're here for diplomacy, and that's what Mr. Trump is doing. And as he says it, he leans back and smiles and looks at the media. And then Zelensky leans in and says, he basically gets along the lines of repeating what he's already said 15 times. I don't know, Trump and JD, I guess, only listen to themselves. That Zelensky's saying, a ceasefire deal will not work. And that's when he leans in and says that again. And then he says, so what diplomacy are you talking about, JD? And then JD's like, I'm talking about the diplomacy that's going to save your kind of country. And just goes off on a spiel and starts belittling a foreign president who's a heroic one, who Republicans too, have had their back since the start, up until Trump came into office, because they have one man, they have one God. His name is Donald Trump. So that's where it fell off, is JD did not like Zelensky pushing back on his little campaign speech. That was JD's moment, and Zelensky ruined it. So I would say it was fun to watch, because it was fun to see JD get egg on the face. But it was a very embarrassing moment and regretful, shameful moment for the United States as we watched a heroic president get belittled like that. But that's what happened. That's how that happened. That's why it happened.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It will make more sense than us talking about everything they
Especially
said.
me in rant form.
So, okay, to break it down in simple terms.
Yes.
Russia invaded Ukraine, started this war. It's been going on for 3 years.
Yes.
We have been sending aid to Ukraine under Biden.
Yes.
Right?
That's correct.
And now this meeting was to strike a deal, but not for us to continue aid.
Correct. Not spelled out at all in the contract. Nowhere in the agreement.
Okay.
Like I said, you can maybe assume that the U.S. just would have interest and would step in, but that was not spelled out, and Zelensky wanted assurances.
Okay. So just wanted to break that down in simple terms for those of us, like I said, who aren't as informed about war and foreign.
I do have one last thing to interject that's really important that just happened yesterday too, is thanks to us stepping down. You might think, and Trump said, Zelensky, you're flirting with World War III. You know who's flirting with World War III? The United States, for not continuing to send aid to Ukraine so that we can keep other boots off the ground. Guess what happened yesterday? UK is announcing boots on the ground in Ukraine. They are committing $2.8 billion in aid and military equipment. And I didn't see if it's confirmed boots are on the ground, but that was within the speech, literally. So it sounds like boots are going to be on the ground. UK is going to put troops in Ukraine to fight against Russia. So who's flirting with World War III? The guy that said that he would end the war in 24 hours. That's who's flirting with it. And so you can thank President Trump for the rest of the world having to step up in the void. And by the way, Europe, I think it was actually every single leader of every single country, if I'm not mistaken. Well, probably not Hungary, places like that. But just about all of Europe met and had an emergency meeting about the U.S. no longer being. They needed to prepare for a world without the U.S., a new world order that does not involve the U.S. So that's where we're at. Thanks to that. That's the man that's flirting World War III. Is our president, who's too much of a, you know what, to continue supporting a diplomatic ally, a democratic ally, being invaded by an illegal aggressor. I had to add that in because that was news that happened over the weekend. So it's escalated thanks to what we did on Friday.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to add a couple things. Like I said, if you haven't seen the video of what happened in this meeting, definitely go watch it. But I just want to say, I don't know about you, but I would it wouldn't be acceptable for me to show up to a work meeting and speak to someone the way that our president and vice president did. I would never see my supervisor showing up to a meeting and speaking to people that way. So I don't know why we are accepting that kind of behavior from our president and vice president. That's unacceptable. It's not leadership. Just because you don't like what someone is saying to you, leaders don't talk to people that way. Or communicate that way just because they disagree with someone.
Not in front of the cameras, in front of the whole world. Maybe behind closed doors, but never in front of the world.
I did want to read something real quick that I saw, and I just think what it says is really good. It says, "Imagine witnessing what happened in the White House and still somehow believing that this is what will make America great. Arrogance and bullying being rebranded as leadership is what has brought us to tragic and embarrassing days like today in our country. We need a revolution of integrity and character in our country. Greatness is found in treating others with dignity in pursuit of the common good for all people, not in how much power you can wield over all people." And I just...
And who said that? I saw that was a...
Yes, let me pull it back up. It is a post. His name is Benjamin Kramer.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to think that that's pronounced. So that's really all I'm going to say as far as that part of it goes. I think that sums it up. Quickly, I also want to say after this meeting, Trump tweeted something about how Zelensky he must not be ready for peace.
Doesn't want peace, yeah.
These people have been at war for years, 3 years. Thousands of their people have died. I saw a video recently. Their children in Ukraine are going to school underground so that they can go to school safely. So yes, I think these people want peace. I think these people want the war to be over. But I don't think him asking questions and wanting to make sure that he gets protection and gets a good deal for his people means that he doesn't want peace. One more thing I want to read. This quote actually came from even before this meeting. It came when Trump tried to lie and say that Ukraine started the war, which, as we've already pointed out, is not true. But I still think this quote holds true. And it's actually from our former Vice President Mike Pence. He said, "Mr. President, Ukraine did not start this war. Russia launched an unprovoked and brutal invasion, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. The road to peace must be built on the truth." And I just think that still applies, because Trump is still trying to spread lies, saying that Zelensky's not ready for peace. And that's simply not the truth, and that's not the way to build peace. All he was trying to say was that we've tried to sign a ceasefire with Putin before. He didn't abide by it. He was fighting. I mean, he was doing what a president does. He was fighting for his people. I don't think that means that he doesn't want peace.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Like, you remember the pictures of Obama in 08 and Obama in 16. He just looks like he's aged like 30 years. Mm-hmm. That's the same with Zelensky in 3 years. Go look at pictures of him when he was first elected and pictures of him now. Poor guy, is anxious, stressed, probably not getting much sleep. And by the way, I just had to throw in this little fun tidbit. I know we're trying to cut video length here. We're still going to be way shorter than we normally are, so that's okay. The biggest clown in Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, her husband has been asking questions every day in the White House. First of all, the White House actually just recently, like a week and a half ago, announced that they're completely restructuring what kind of media allows, that they get to pick and choose what media. It is so evident because Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend is I almost said it, asking the question of, why aren't you wearing a suit? Hey, first of all, terrible question. Second of all, Zelensky has wore that garb at every single place that he's gone and spoke at. You want to know why? Because it matches what the military is wearing over there in Ukraine, and he's showing his solidarity as the leader. And also, just a little fun fact, it doesn't really matter, but when Zelensky said, perhaps I will wear a costume after its order, it's actually really close to the word costume, which in Ukrainian means suit. So he actually says, perhaps I'll wear a suit after the war's over. I do think it's funny either way. I'll wear a costume or a suit, but that is what he meant. It's like, you're asking me why I'm wearing a suit in the middle of a war right now, whenever my children are being bombed in hospitals and schools. Perhaps I'll wear one. And then he said, maybe like yours, maybe better. So, yeah, I thought that was a nice little tidbit here. We're such a serious nation that Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend is in there asking questions. And by the way, sorry, I'll close it on this. Audibly laughing at every single ha 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 every time that Trump says something. The dude is licking the boots. But I had to toss that in. Sorry.
Okay, let's briefly talk about what's good. I was just going to read another good bill that has passed through committees here in Oklahoma. It is an employer tax credit for sharing in child care costs to strengthen our workforce and infrastructure. So sounds like it could be something positive for parents possibly getting assistance with childcare, and also would help employers who participate in that. So that is something, like I said, it passed in the committees. It'll still have to be, voted on, but a good bill that could possibly come here in Oklahoma.
It's always good news. Over here at All One Out, despite you seeing me go off on a crazy rant, you'll see many more of those. I do at least try to be fair where I can. Trump was able to secure a $100 billion deal from Taiwan, $100 billion over the next 4 years to invest in semiconductor factories here in the United States. I think that one of Biden's greatest pieces of legislation to happen under him, be passed through Congress and he sign off of, and that was one that was completely Democratic and Biden led, was the CHIPS and Science Act, where $200 billion was invested in chip making. And so it's only fair. I think that was a fantastic move by Biden. It was a great move by Trump. There's a caveat, and of course, you probably knew I'd be looking for one. There is one, and it's literally sticking out right in front of your face. It's cool. You can build a chip making factory in the United States. You can't build an avocado factory. You can't build a maple syrup factory. You can't build a Crown Royal factory. Well, you can. But by the way, Canada hates us, and they're not going to. And I mean, excuse me, you can do maple syrup too, but not at all can you replace the level of things coming in from Canada, from Mexico. By the way, 25% on Europe later. All these tariffs should be making everything around you, including the things that actually not tariff, because those will go up in cost and camouflaging too. The things that aren't not tariffed will also raise because producers are greedy. Capitalism is the best system, but it's one that's full of greed. Every little thing around you in your life is going to go up. So that kind of makes you wonder. I mean, I guarantee you, we could fund, as the taxpayers, well more than $100 billion and just never have the tariffs. And that would have solved a lot more problems, I would think, especially when it comes to kicking your allies. By the way, Canada said that they are going to unveil a really harsh trade policy with the United States tomorrow as the 25% tariffs in Mexico and Canada hit. So that is the good news. It's mixed in with plenty of bad. Don't let that distract you from what's going on. But we do at least have AI chip making power, growing in the United States.
All right, I think that's it. Stay tuned. We've got some more episodes we're working on. I am reading Project 2025, which has already been a trip.
God bless your soul.
So we're going to be talking about that, and we've got some other good stuff coming. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Odd One Out.